Hello there, and welcome to the Basics of Speedrunning Bastion. I am some dude. I am one of the moderators for the Bastion speedrunning community. I've been playing this game since, 2015, running the game at least since 2015. And I've held a couple world records over the course of my years here, so I'm just here to talk with you about kind of the bare minimum of what you want to know in order to get started speedrunning Bastion. Over the course of, hopefully this shouldn't take too much longer than an hour or so, but over the course of this presentation, we'll be talking about like a quick overview of the speedrun and the categories available, talking mainly through the main categories of the game, talking you through setting up the game, what version to use, how to set up your control scheme. We'll be talking through the basics of movement tech in the game, how to like get the kid from point A to point B. I'll give a very quick rundown of the weapons that we use in most of our runs, kind of the four weapons that you really need to know about. I'll talk a little bit about just how the Bastion works and how we take advantage of the way that the Bastion kind of develops over the course of the game, and how we take advantage of that in the speedrun. And then I'll cover just a couple things that I think are good to know, stuff that is useful to know in pretty much every speedrun of Bastion. So just stuff that's worth talking about here because of that. So to get started, Bastion is, it's a wonderful game. It has an incredible story. The world building is some of my favorite that I've seen in any game. It's a really wonderful game just casually. If you're here though, if you're watching this, and by the way, if you're watching, I'm streaming this right now on Twitch. I'm also uploading this then on YouTube afterwards. So if you're watching live and want to know anything about the game, just feel free to throw some throw questions as you come up with them. Toss them in the chat. I'll take a couple spots to break just over the course of this presentation and answer questions. Talk about whatever you're curious about. And if you're watching from YouTube after the fact, there's a link to our Discord down in the description below, along with timestamps for each of the major sections of this discussion, so you can jump around and then head over to the Discord and ask any follow-up questions that you might have, and we will be more than happy to help you. So, the very basics of what you want to know about how we how we look at the speedrun as a whole. Timing starts when you gain control of the kid, which is 1.1 seconds after he first gets up in the rippling walls. That is what we call SDA timing, Speed Demos Archive timing. It's kind of an older timing method, but it's one that we've had since we started doing runs of this game. And timing ends when you choose an ending in the heart of the Bastion. So, the speedrun really consists of just trying to get to the heart of the Bastion as quickly as possible. How do you do that? You put 14 cores in the monument. That's it. That's all you have to do. And I say cores, whenever I talk about cores, just so you know, I am referring to both cores and shards. The game considers cores and shards to be the exact same object, it just gives it a different sprite and a different name, depending on what level you're in and how many cores have gone into the monument at the Bastion. So, from here on out, I will just refer to them as cores. So, all you have to do, in order to get to the heart of the Bastion, all you have to do in order to finish the game, is put 14 cores in the monument. So, all of our speedruns, all of the different categories of speedruns that we do, basically revolve around how you get those 14 cores, and if you need to do anything extra along the way. So, these are the three main categories of the game. This is a screenshot of our speedrun.com website. This is where our leaderboard is hosted. The three main categories that are the most popular and the most, well respected, for lack of a better way to put it. Those categories are any percent no menu storage, and all story levels. A lot of new runners, when they like first come into the Discord and talk about being interested in the game, one of the first questions that they'll ask is what category to start with. And really the answer is whatever looks cool to you. Honestly, just watch world record videos, watch GDQ runs, see what category just looks really fun to you and looks like something you'll want to stick with. So to give you a little bit more context around that, I'm going to talk through, for sure, these three main categories here. First one is any percent. This is our just get to the end of the game, we don't care how category. And so in order to do that, we actually make use of a really major game-breaking glitch called menu storage, a very specific type of menu storage, in order to pick up a single core as many times as we want. So basically, that allows us to go to the first core that we're able to get in the Wharf District, use this glitch, pick up like 8 trillion cores if you feel like it, and then go straight to the Bastion, put them all in at once, and head to the end of the game. It's obviously the most broken category, and I would say by far the easiest to just like hop into and do runs, if that's all you're looking to do. And starting into it, if you're, just new to the game, you can expect that it'll probably take you around 5 minutes once you know the route to just go through the game. The next category is any percent no menu storage. This bans the game-breaking glitch that makes any percent possible. And so what you have to do then is we use another glitch, same sort of idea but less powerful, called core duplication. And I'll explain that in detail more toward the end of this presentation. But basically this glitch allows you to pick up 2 cores at once. So the category basically consists of go to the 7 fastest levels in the game, pick up 2 cores each at those, and then finish the game that way. And this is one of our most popular categories, I think, because it is still very beginner friendly. It has a really nice mix of glitches and just knowledge of basic mechanics of the game, just knowing how to play the game in general. And if you were to get started with this, your first run you could probably expect would be somewhere around 20 minutes long, probably even a little less. All story levels bans even core duplication, bans that glitch. So this is the category that actually requires you to go through every story level in the game to pick up each core that's around there. This is the least glitchy category in the game. It still uses a number of glitches, but none of them so much shorten the game itself. They're still this is very much the most focused on just using the game mechanics and like moving through the game as quickly as possible. If you were to get started with this today, you could probably expect that once you've learned the route, it'll take you around an hour, maybe a little less, to get through it for your first time. We also have So each of these categories is split into New Game and New Game Plus variants. New Game just starts you off from a fresh save file. You use, the weapons that you pick up along the way, anything, you don't have anything already available to you. And so, most of the game is built around just getting a hold of the best weapons that are available to you in the levels that you go to, and just moving around the levels very quickly. New Game Plus is largely the same. There's not a whole lot of difference between New Game and New Game Plus. In New Game Plus, you are playing from a fully unlocked save file. So you are level 10, you have all weapons, all the upgrades on those weapons, any secret skill you feel like. Although we only really use one secret skill, which is pike vaults. This is an incredibly powerful skill that is readily available in New Game Plus, not so much in New Game. And I'll explain pike vaults a little bit later, but New Game Plus categories basically revolve around solid movement plus pike vaulting basically anywhere you can. Again, I'll explain that in a little while. We also have some miscellaneous categories. All weapons requires you to pick up every weapon available in the game that you can get from the arsenal, alongside just getting to the end of the game. All interactive collectibles means that you have to pick up anything that shows up in the arsenal, in the Lost and not the Lost and Found, but like all of the mementos, all of the upgrade materials, things like that. Basically, if you can pick it up and it requires you to interact with it, you gotta pick it up. All dreams and challenges basically expands us out from just the story levels in the game, and it requires you to also get first prize in all of the weapon-based challenges in the game, as well as completing all of the dream sequences. This is a new game specific category, so it doesn't include the Stranger's Dream, but the Kid's Dream, the Singer's Dream, and the Survivor's Dream are also required in order to beat the game. And finally, ASL no roll. Don't worry about this, it's just a meme. This is literally ASL, but you're not allowed to roll at all. Don't worry about this one. So to get started setting up the game, first of all, you want to know that the PC version of the game is the fastest one available. You can play on console. We have had runners that have played on console, but just know that if you use console, you will not be putting up competitive times. There's basically no chance that you could, like, world record, for example, playing on the console version. It's completely available, though. You can, I don't think any percent no MS is possible on console, but any percent in ASL are both possible on console, so you can still compete, still be on the leaderboard by playing from console versions. But if you want the fastest version, pick up the version either from Steam or GOG. Both of those versions, both of those downloads, are compatible with our auto splitter, the auto splitter that we use off of LiveSplit. I'm not going to get very deep into LiveSplit or OBS in this tutorial, just because I want to keep the focus on Bastion, but you can always look online. There's a lot of really wonderful information about setting up LiveSplit, about setting up auto splitters for LiveSplit, and about getting OBS ready so that you can record and stream your runs, so that you can then send in videos for your submissions. But you want to pick up the version of Bastion either from Steam or GOG. And once you've done that, this is why we use the PC version. I am sure this is a screenshot that you're looking at of the control scheme that I use when I do runs. And two things I want you to be aware of right now. The first is that we use Mason-style controls, that is mouse movement. So that is sort of a like Diablo-style or MOBA-style kind of movement, which is you click somewhere, kid walks to that spot. That is because there's a movement bug there. It's a very useful movement bug that causes you to roll farther if you're using mouse movement compared to any other control scheme. And there are certain tricks that even require that extra distance that you're able to get out of your rolls in mouse movement. Mouse movement is so important because you are going to be rolling constantly, all the time. Every opportunity that you get during the game, you're going to be rolling. And that extra distance that you get out of every single roll, the amount of time save that you get from that adds up very, very quickly. So, first and foremost, mouse movement is what you want to use. Second, this is going to depend on the category that you use. Don't worry about this if you are going to be focused in on all story levels, but otherwise, you want to set your interact key to your mouse wheel on your mouse. That allows for core duplication. That is the input that allows core duplication to be possible. So basically every category other than ASL uses some sort of core duplication. So generally speaking, unless you're doing ASL, mouse wheel for your interact. So now we can hop into talking about basic movement. The first thing you want to know is that when you are walking around, the kid is not moving toward the target that you see here. This target is kind of misleading. I see a lot of new players that will move around kind of assuming that their cursor is in the center of that blue target that you're seeing in the picture there. That's not the case. The cursor is actually at the center of the shadow underneath that target. I see a lot of times where like people need to have their like mouse in a very specific place. The cursor needs to be like in a very like specific spot, and sometimes they'll just be too low because they think that they're going off of the target there. You want to be looking at the shadow instead whenever you're moving around with the kid, and it's a helpful thing here with mouse movement. You'll see a little dust trail kick up whenever you have your left mouse button held down in order for the kid to move. That will give you an indication of where your cursor actually is. So keep an eye out for the dust trail, keep an eye out for the shadow. That will be where your cursor is. Now, rolling. Rolling is the most important part of running Bastion. That is how we get, that's how we're able to move as fast as we are. Rolling is the most efficient form of movement. So basically you want to roll at every possible opportunity. So a single roll is an animation that takes 27 frames to finish. Or so what that boils down to is you basically get to roll once every half a second or so. Now, one issue with that is that you can't just mash the mouse button. I'm actually going to show that just right now. I'm going to... There we go. And I'm going to show you this in-game. So, as you see that, again, that dust trail being kicked around. That shadow there, that beginning of that dust trail, that is where my cursor is. So that's where the kid is moving. Now to talk about rolls, like I say, you can roll about once every half a second. I'm going to start by just mashing my roll key and just trying to like press it as much as possible. And like you'll see like the kid is rolling around quite a fair deal, but there are like these kind of awkward delays sometimes. These like spots where the kid just kind of walks for a little bit before he rolls again. This is because the animation around rolling is locked in such a way that you can't start your next roll until the animation for the previous one finishes. So if you're just mashing, there's also then a kind of thing that will tend to happen in the game where like the game sees that you're mashing, and so it'll just like delay the next roll a little bit, because like it's just kind of assuming that like you didn't actually want to be pressing, you know, the spacebar that much, right? So the first thing you want to get the hang of when you are learning about moving is getting into a rhythm. You know that you can roll once about every half a second. And you'll notice I'm like dropping rolls here and there. That happens. Don't worry about it. But what you want to pick up, you know, as you know, this is kind of the first thing that you want to like sort out, is just rolling about as soon as you can consistently. Having a consistent pace tends to be more important than just rolling at the first possible opportunity you can get, because you're not going to be able to maintain that. If you can keep a consistent pace, though, overall, you will be able to go a little bit farther on average. So this is kind of like the first thing that new runners kind of need to get a hang of. And this is something that I really suggest, like what I'm doing right now, just like hang out in the Bastion for a little while and just roll around. Just get like a really good feel for like how the kid is able to move around, you know, how tight he's able to take his turns when he's rolling, and just get into a very consistent rhythm, a very consistent pace with it. And that pace will get quicker and quicker as you get more familiar with how the kid rolls. But rolling is only half of the equation when it comes to basic movement. The other half is the ground. So the ground forms up in front of you. This is kind of one of the main gimmicks of Bastion, is that the ground forms up in a path ahead of you. So like it kind of like points you in the right direction of where you need to go. It's a nice little visual thing. And it also causes a lot of headaches in speedruns. Now, the ground forms up randomly. The, like, actual algorithm that decides when and how each specific ground tile spawns is random. But whenever the ground rises up, it'll like come into place, but there is no collision on it until it gets into place and gets stuck there. So it's very easy to think that like the ground ahead of you, for example, is solid when it's actually not. And because what we were saying earlier about the movement bug, it's a glitch. The fact that we are moving as far and as fast as we are with mouse movement is a glitch. The game did not intend for us to be able to move that fast. So most of the time, the ground isn't going to be able to keep up with you if you're just moving at full speed all the time. There's actually only one level that allows that, which is Sundown Path. And that's just because it's a level where you kind of need to be moving all the time anyway. So the ground actually forms up in sort of a different way than pretty much any other level in order to keep pace with you, because otherwise, like, you'll just run out of usable ground. But in any case, most of the time, the ground is not going to keep pace with you. So not only do you want to be able to roll fast and roll consistently, but you need to be able to adjust on the fly toward how the ground is forming up around you. And to show that off and to show like what that means in practice, I am going to head over to the Hanging Gardens and show you kind of the first section of the Hanging Gardens and talk through the mentality around how to get accustomed to the way that the ground works and how to work with it. Now, the Hanging Gardens in particular is a very notorious level in Bastion speedruns because the ground in it is incredibly unforgiving. It forms up slowly, it's very easy to like get off pattern with it, and like a lot of times it'll look like there's solid ground when there's not. It's very easy to get tripped up in the Hanging Gardens, and I'm going to show you why that is right now.
Now here's what really happened in the Hanging Gardens.
So I'm just going at full speed. I'm just going to go at full speed and see how quickly I can get there. That was a fall. Oh, that was a fall. I am just rolling as fast as I possibly can right now. There's another fall. And we'll stop here. So, I want to point out falling is a very, very bad thing because not only does it stop you from getting any closer to like where you're trying to get, it wastes 2.5 seconds from the animation of falling, the animation of landing, and then getting up. That entire thing takes 2.5 seconds. So the less you're able to fall, the better, always. And that 2.5 seconds could be a little less if like the place you land is a little closer to where you're going, or a little more if you land further away, that sort of thing. But anyway, let's talk through where we fell and why we think that happened. So let's go right all the way back to the beginning here. So this was where I got up. I moved down, I rolled a couple times, and I fell around these stairs here. Those stairs formed up a little slowly, so I can probably like sandbag or roll here. I can just like, just walk for a little bit before I roll again, and that'll probably be fine. I also saw that like these ground tiles here spawn kind of weirdly, and I just kind of fell right through the whole thing, so I want to wait here just a little bit before I roll again. I got through here, okay. These stairs here and kind of like the, last part of this road down to these stairs also caused a problem here. I fell here. But then everything was fine all the way through here. So let's do this again. Let's try this again, and let's adjust.
The dead welcome him with open arms.
So I'm rolling. Let's wait here a little bit. Now I can roll again. Okay, walked here, gonna walk here. Now I can roll again. Oh, I fell here now. I wasn't ready for that. Now I got here okay. And it looks like I don't need to worry about like this little piece of ground that forms up. I've never had problems rolling over that, so I won't worry about that. But this area here is another spot that, like, now that I have adjusted for this area, now I have to worry about the area past it. So let's do it one more time, and let's see if we can get to the, like, the end spot that I was at without falling even once.
The calamity took everybody after all. Kids
There we
is
go.
frozen
That looks
places
good.
around. Leaves
And
the
it's just like,
calamity coming.
this basically just boils down to very strategic waiting in order to get the ground to where it needs to be. Just waiting for the ground to catch up to you before you can start rolling again. And I'm spending so much time talking about this because, honestly, this is where, like, 90% of your time save comes from. Like, when you're improving with this game, when you're getting better at it, when you're getting more familiar with the game, like, most of the time, vast majority of the time, that familiarity is coming from understanding the way that the ground works better. And this is one of those topics that, like, honestly, this is why I love Bastion as much as I do. This is why I've stuck with the game as long as I have, is because I can just get, like, lost in these levels, just trying to get this ground not only then to work with me, but then, like, you know, I at least have gotten to the point where, like, now I know how the ground works well enough that I can try and make it work for me. I can try and, like, get into a position with, you know, my rolls. You know, I'm gonna actually show that off right now.
The dead.
Like, once you get good enough at this game and understand the ground well enough, you can take some bigger risks with it. I, you know, had to wait a little bit for, like, the ground that, you know, those green tiles there. You know, this is, like, for another example right here. This tile that the kid is standing on right now, this tile, actually, these two are big tiles. You cannot get through this area without rolling directly over this tile in particular. But it spawns very slowly if you're just walking up to it. And so, like, you know, once we get into, like, really, really nitpicky kind of stuff, trying to, like, save every single tenth of a second that we can possibly get, you know, the world record route for, you know, this early part of the level involves basically taking these stairs super risky, being basically right up against, like, the edge of the ground that we can actually walk on at all times so that we can get here with and get a nice roll in order to make this tile spawn faster. And none of this is stuff that you really need to know, but that sort of detail in terms of, like, understanding how the ground spawns and how you can move your kid around in order to manipulate the way the ground spawns, that is what really improves your times. We can talk about, you know, glitches and specific tricks all the time, but, like, really, like, more often than not, what separates a good runner from a great runner is just their ability to get the ground to work for them. So, I think I've belabored that point enough. I'll move on from there. And we'll head back over here. Turn up the music a little bit more. So, now we're going to talk about weapons. There are 4 main weapons that we use over the course of the game. Technically 5, but really 4. And so the first one that you pick up, this is the first weapon that you pick up in the game, is the Sail Hammer. Its damage is completely dependent on well, I'm actually going to hop right back into the game to show this. So, the weapon usage here with the hammer varies very much on how and when you are swinging with the hammer. Hammer basically has 3 modes: an overhead, an uppercut, and a moving strike. So, I'm going to get an enemy here just to, like, show this off a little bit. So you'll see here, an uppercut does 15 damage. Well, that's unfortunate, it died there. But that's an uppercut. An overhead deals 20 damage, and a moving hit deals 10. The reason all of this is important is because of the animation speed of each of those swings. An uppercut is kind of in between. An overhead is it has the most damage, but it also has one of the longest animations out of there. And the moving hammer hit deals the least damage, but it has the fastest animation, so you can spam the attacks out of the hammer much more quickly when you're moving around. In order to get the uppercut and overhead, the kid has to be not moving. So like, I have let go of the left mouse button entirely. Kid does a stationary swing. The overhead and uppercut are both stationary swings, and this is the only moving swing. Now, other thing to note here is that when the kid is stationary and doing uppercuts and overheads, he always switches back and forth. He alternates between overheads and uppercuts. And I believe that it's the case that whenever you start a level, the first time that the kid like ever goes into a level, he will always start with an overhead. So you can use that to your advantage in order to like deal a lot of damage very quickly. So using the hammer is kind of technical in that sense, but a lot of it tends to boil down to a lot of like combat is kind of choreographed in advance. So it's more so that it's important that you know how the hammer swings and like what that does, so that like when I say that, oh, the way to kill the foreman, the gas fella foreman in the workman ward is with an overhead, a whirlwind, and then a moving hit. That's that's how you know like what that does. It's choreographed in advance, but you need to know like basically like how much damage they deal, especially so that if you go off script, you can recover pretty easily. So the second main weapon that we use most of the time is the Fang Repeater. This is the second weapon that you ever get to pick up in the game. Pardon me, I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. Alright, so the Fang Repeater is the second weapon that you're able to pick up in the game. We pick up the hammer and the repeater basically just because they're right there and we need something. These aren't fantastic weapons, but they do work. The Fang Repeater is basically sort of a like slowish firing machine gun that has, I believe, 8 bolts before you have to reload it. And each shot deals either 3 or 4 damage. Now this can be really annoying. It's completely random whether it deals 3 or 4 damage, and it can be kind of annoying because squirts, which are the most common enemy that you're going to use the repeater on, squirts have 4 health. So you kind of want to just... It needs to be a high roll like all the time. Worst case scenario, you spend an extra shot, in order to like actually kill the squirt. But like, you just kind of like thank your lucky stars whenever you get 4 damage out of a shot. And so to hop back in the game and show the Fang Repeater in action, I'm moving around, I'm shooting. You are rooted in place while you're shooting. I am like holding down my secondary fire key right now, and I am not able to move anywhere until I let go. So like, keep that in mind whenever you're using this. You honestly, like, it's not used very much in the run, but because it is used in every run, this is another one of those things that's useful to know about. So you want to stay in place, pardon me, you stay in place, you can't move while you're shooting, and you can target with the... You know what? Actually, I need to go pick that up because I don't have the shield on me. I'll get that in a second, though. So, in the meantime, we're next going to talk about the scrap musket. Now, this is one of the better weapons in the game. It's particularly useful for like clearing out brush or obstacles, and it's pretty darn good for combat too. It's a very versatile weapon too, because the scrap musket deals 30 damage at point blank range, but the further the target is from where you shot it, it'll deal less and less damage, depending on where it gets hit. So it's a really, really good weapon for combat if you can get up like point blank range and like either like shoot like a big enemy right at point blank and that'll deal the full 30 damage. You can also get rid of like large groups of smaller enemies with the spread out of the firing from the musket. So let's hop in here. Let's equip now. I'm going to equip Brusher's Pike now because we're going to talk about that next. And the Scrap Musket. And yeah, no, I'll worry about that later. So this is how the Scrap Musket fires. It has a little bit of reload time on it too. But like, it can deal a lot of damage. Oh, I forgot to switch the transition. Thank you. So it has like a nice range of fire, a nice spread on it, and it can deal like, you know, you see how like obstacles like this, you can clear out a lot of obstacles very quickly by just kind of pointing the musket in the general direction of it when you're not very close to it, and just fire to get a lot of stuff out of the way, which is very useful when you just need to like get through something that's blocked off. Or like in combat, you can get up close to something, shoot it from point blank range, and deal a lot of damage. I'm going to pick up the shield here now. And the last weapon that we are going to talk about here is the Brusher's Pike. This is the best weapon in the game. It deals the same amount of damage as a point blank musket shot, but you can pike things very, very quickly. It has a very long range. You can also throw it to deal even a little bit more damage if you throw it with a power shot, which is basically just throwing it with good timing. And so because of all these things, the pike has the best DPS in the game. You can deal a lot of damage very, very quickly by using the pike. So let's show that off now in game. There's going to be a little, there's going to be a turret spawning here. I'm going to stand all the way over here. 2 hits, it's down. That's a lot of damage all at once. You can one-shot certain things. You can deal a lot of damage very, very quickly with the pike, which makes it like a very, very powerful weapon for speedruns. Because like we don't invoke any like of the idols. We don't try and make the game any harder on us than it already is just to begin with. Combat basically consists of just trying to chunk down your enemies as quickly as possible. So something that deals a high amount of damage quickly, like the pike, is hugely useful, incredibly useful. And so now, this is the, we'll call it an honorary weapon, the Bullhead Shield. I picked up the shield when I was here, and it not only helps you aim, because it's a defensive tool, because whenever you are holding down the shield button, in my case I use shift as my shield button, whenever you're holding that down, Kid will automatically aim at whatever enemy is closest to him, and just hold up the shield in front of it. Nothing will get through, he won't get hit. He will be vulnerable from behind, but that's not a huge deal. But the other use of it is that not only can you block, attacks from enemies, but if you block with really good timing, which I believe the timing window on that is like about 1/4 of a second. If you block with good timing, you'll do a counter block, which will deal like a multiple of that damage back at the whoever was trying to attack you in the first place. Let's take a look at that right now. See this gas fella right here? I was a little late there. That's a counter block. If you have good timing, that can deal even more damage to a given enemy than would even be useful. I think actually that it might just be like 30 straight damage that a counter block does. It's actually really funny because there are I've seen this a couple times where like a turret has shot at me. I've counter blocked the turret, so like the shot just goes back at the turret, kills the turret, but then ricochets off, kills another turret, and the damage has multiplied now twice. And then it just so happened to ricochet back in my direction, hit me, and I died. Counter blocking can be like a really fun thing, and it feels so satisfying once you have that timing down. So set back. Now we're going to talk about secret skills. I don't want to go like at like a huge amount of time talking about this, but these 5 secret skills listed: Whirlwind, Sneaky Decoy, Trip Mines, Hand Grenades, and Pike Vault. These are all of the secret skills that we use in our main categories. So I'll talk through them one by one. Let's also transition back here. So I'm going to equip these real quick. First of all is Whirlwind. This is a secret skill that is specific to the hammer. So you have to have the hammer equipped in order to use Whirlwind. And by the way, all of your secret skills are constrained by the number of black tonics you have. Basically, you get 3 charges on this Whirlwind. You get to use Whirlwind 3 times. And then you can't use it anymore until you pick up a black tonic in order to like refill what you're So Whirlwind does this. It basically deals 6 stacks of 15 damage as the kid basically like, just swings his hammer in a circle around him. Now this can deal a lot of damage very quickly. It also makes the kid very difficult to move. You can see that his like movement can get kind of wonky. If you're like, and it's kind of difficult to control the kid when you're whirlwinding, but we don't even like, we use this in a couple spots for combat, but more so than that, like, we also use it for like a clip. It's a little bit of like some movement tech there. Whirlwind can be like pretty useful and pretty versatile in a number of ways. But it is, we use it largely because it's the first secret skill you come upon, and it's pretty useful for what it does. Next up, there we go. Next up is Sneaky Decoy. I'll equip the pike in order to show this off. So Sneaky Decoy creates a fake copy of you. You'll see enemies will attack that copy, and then whenever you attack next, that attack is guaranteed to be a critical hit, which will deal double damage. Now this is a secret skill that you can pick up without going out of your way really at all in Rothus Lagoon, which is another major reason why we pick it up. Basically, all of the weapons that we pick up happen to be pretty much on our route. We don't have to really go out of our way to get any of them. Pike Vault is the only exception to this, and I'm going to explain why that is in a moment. But before that, next up, we're going to show off Trip Mines. This is something we pick up in the Melting Pot. This is these next 2 secret skills are pretty specific to new game ASL. So to show this off, you place a trip mine, a mine goes down. Something gets close to it, it waits for a moment, it like charges for a moment, and then explodes. Deals a lot of damage. It can like 2, maybe 3 of these can chunk down huge enemies so quickly. Pretty useful. And the last new game secret skill that we use is the hand grenade. This is like, outside of Pike Vault, this is the most powerful secret skill in the game. A single hand grenade deals 88 damage in an area. So I'm going to lob this at all those squirts over there. Dead. 88 damage to all of them. So you can just lob a grenade by just tossing it without like aiming at anything, or you can use your shield. I'm going to aim at these squirts, and you can target the grenade at them. You'll notice though that you see that, so it didn't lob, it wasn't in the air as long, and it just went right over to that squirt. One thing about that, though, is that the grenade will land where the enemy was when you tossed it. So if the enemy moves from that spot, if it gets far enough away before the grenade lands, it might miss. Usually don't have to worry about that, but keep it in mind. And for our last secret skill, I'm going to show this off by going back to the Hanging Gardens. This is Pike Vault. This secret skill is basically the backbone of New Game Plus runs. And this is a secret skill that is specific to the Brusher's Pike. What it does is... I'll let him talk. He speaks so well. But anyway, what Pike Vault does is when you use it, you hop into the air, and you land, and you deal a lot of damage in an area around the kid. But it's not so much about the damage as it is about the movement. You see that there was some travel time on that Pike Vault, and thanks to our glitched movement from mouse movement, we can take advantage of that travel time. And if you do this, and if you aim it right, Pike Vaults are very difficult to do. But basically, if you time a Pike Vault with a roll close enough to the edge here, you can cross gaps. And in New Game Plus, that lets you skip, like, for example, here in Hanging Gardens, I would need another Pike Vault to, like, get around this gate, and, you know, I can just do that. To get around this gate, head over to this core right here, pick it up, and we just skipped the entire level. We just get to leave Hanging Gardens without, like, doing much of anything else in the level other than Pike Vaulting to get over a few gaps. Pike Vault is incredibly powerful, and there are a lot of spots that basically allow you to get to places that you shouldn't be able to using Pike Vault. And so it kind of forms the backbone of New Game Plus runs, just because we don't really use it in New Game because you get the Pike so late in the game, and it's only after you get the Pike that you can even buy Pike Vault from the Lost and Found, at which point, like, most of the spots where Pike Vault would have been useful, we've already, you know, beaten those levels. But in New Game Plus, it's huge. It's, like, it really changes the game. It turns it from being just about moving through the levels to moving through the levels and also making use of this very powerful secret skill. So moving on, we're now going to talk about the Bastion. That was, you know, what we were talking about there was combat, moving through the levels. That is pretty much all you need to know in order to just start playing the levels. The other half of the runs, though, is spending time in the Bastion. So here's a little discussion to give you some understanding of how the Bastion works. So the most important part about the Bastion is the monument. This is where you put cores in. This is how you're able to progress the story, how you're able to get to the heart of the Bastion and finish the game. The way that cores are set up, like the way that the monument is set up to accept cores, the game basically keeps track of the number of cores that have been put into the monument so far. When you put in your first 6 cores, the Bastion will lay a foundation in one of the 6 spots around the Bastion, and you have to build a building on one of them in order to leave and go on to the next level. On the 7th one, there's this whole explosion cutscene because Zolf destroyed the monument, and, like, that was kind of what fixed it. Doesn't really do anything gameplay-wise, but it shifts the Bastion into shard mode, which is from cores 8 to 13, when they get put into the monument, you will be prompted to upgrade a building that you already have. And then the 14th core obviously will take you to the heart of the Bastion, end the game. Now, this is important to take note of, because especially in categories where you're not putting in cores one at a time, you only have to build one building in order to leave. So most runs that do any sort of core duplication will put both of the cores in that they picked up, build one building, and leave. This will cause you to end up with 2, maybe 3 buildings that you've built by the time you need to start upgrading them. So there is potential to soft lock if you mess something up because of that. Again, as long as you're following the route, this won't really be a big deal, because we have ways around that. As long as you are only upgrading like 2, maybe 3 buildings, you'll be fine. But that is something to keep in mind so that you can adjust in case something goes wrong. So, what I was talking about with the foundations, those are the 6 spots where foundations are put. You can put one of 6 buildings there. The only buildings that we really care about are the arsenal and the distillery. Sorta kinda the memorial is useful, but that's really only useful in specific categories where you need money in order to buy things. So like all weapons uses the memorial, but like you generally don't need to worry about it unless you're branching off into one of those categories. But anyway, those 6 spots of the foundations there that you see in this screenshot are where you can make buildings. Rule of thumb, if you can build a building toward the top, do that. You always want your building to be as close to the skyway as possible. The skyway is right at the very north point of the Bastion. You want as short a distance as possible between the foundation and that skyway. So, now let's talk about the arsenal. Arsenal, we don't need to go into like, huge detail about it, but just know that like this is where you can switch weapons if you need to, where you can pick up secret skills if you need to. You largely won't have to worry about like using this very much in runs, because whenever you pick up a weapon or a secret skill, it'll replace what was there previously. So you'll have your weapon loadout, in its correct configuration just by playing the game. The distillery warrants a little bit more explanation. So we don't use spirits that are in the distillery all that much, but the ones that we do have some like very important effects on the game. In New Game, particularly New Game all story levels, we make use of Were Whiskey, which you'll see in that screenshot on the left. Were Whiskey increases your critical hit chance to 100%, so you are always dealing double damage, which can make combat super easy. It makes like particularly like large boss fights pretty trivial, but the cost is that this is only the case when you're at a third of your health. So you get to deal a lot of damage, but you're also kind of in danger. You are in danger of being like a hit or 2 away from dying pretty much at all times. We make use of that in ASL in order to like chunk down some bosses pretty quickly. So it's a very useful spirit, and like once you like kind of get used to like the way that enemies work, and again like kind of the way the levels are laid out, the health drop isn't all that big of a deal. In New Game Plus, sometimes we use Were Whiskey in ASL, but in all categories of New Game Plus, we also use Champagne. Now, this increases your damage by 25%. It's a really large increase in damage, and you can think about with Were Whiskey that damage increases even further. The side effect is that you lose one of your chances to carry on if you're defeated. So like, you regularly in the game, you basically have 2 lives. If you get killed once, you will fall down, you will have a chance to carry on. You can get up right where you were and just continue where you were at full health. If you then die again, you will be sent back to the beginning of the level, and that's just it. You have to like start the level from the beginning. Champagne takes away that safety net. It takes away one of your chances to carry on. So it's a very useful thing for New Game Plus. In most runs, you're not really expecting to die anyway, except for like a specific point where you are aiming to die, in which case Champagne is very useful. But so those are the like necessary spirits that we use in certain categories of the game. These next 2 are more just safety nets. These are things that you can equip if you want just a little extra assurance that you're going to make it through a particularly difficult level or a particularly difficult fight. Lifeline, on the left, causes you to survive an attack that would otherwise kill you. So, like, instead of being killed by that attack, you just get set to 1 health, and you get invincibility for, like, a couple seconds. Like, just enough time to basically get away is how it's intended. And so that can make some boss fights, like, a little easier. That way you can, like, still make use of Were Whiskey without, like, being in danger of just dying, for example. On the right is Hardy Punch. It gives you an extra chance to carry on if you die, so instead of 2 lives you get 3, or if you have Champagne, instead of 1 life you get 2, and you do a little, like, explosion of damage if you die. Again, neither of these, like, are really used, like, once you're, like, really comfortable with the game, but if you want just, like, a little extra safety net as you're getting started, these are both incredibly useful. Really wonderful spirits, and they can really help you out as you're getting comfortable with playing the game. So, the last thing that I want to talk about with regards to the Bastion itself is the map. Now, the map, I will actually, like, hop into the game to show this to you. Let's go to Bastion. By the way, I'm using debug mode in order to, like, hop around to all of these levels. You largely don't need to worry about this. Oh, man, it's holding onto the cutscene. Alright, I guess, well, I can take some time to explain while that's happening then. So, the debug mode is a nice thing that you can use to practice. At the main menu, just hold Control, Shift, and press D, and that will activate debug mode. There is a lot more information about, like, how you can use debug mode and how to use it, like, for practice. Ian Synth has a really wonderful video about that. If you're watching this from YouTube, I'll leave that in the description as well. Or otherwise, you can hop onto our Discord, and in the resources channel, there's a link to that video there as well, so you can learn a bit more about debug mode that way. But it's largely a way to, like, get to whatever level you're trying to get to very quickly. You can practice levels there, you can restart levels very quickly, that sort of thing. It's just a nice thing for practice. So, in any case, I'm going to put in some cores in order to, like, get the foundation moving. You'll see that the monument is still open. The sprite for the monument changes whenever you are out of cores. So, easy way to know that it, like, if you duped a core or not is just by checking if the monument is still open. So, I put 3 cores in. We now have 3 foundations here. Rule of thumb, always put your building, unless you're, like, really, like, planning something out in advance, always put your building as close to the skyway up here as possible. Other thing that I want to show off is that right there. You might think that nothing happened. That was a text skip. I'll talk about the map in a moment. Text skips are also, like, a very useful little optimization for speedruns. Typically, when you enter the skyway, oftentimes Rux will have something to say. For example, like, if I were to, like, hop in right now, he might just be like, oh, this is the skyway, this is how the kid can travel around. But the thing is, Rux really likes talking, and because of that, he won't let you leave until he's done talking, if you get to the map like this. So that can, like, waste time while you're just waiting for Rux to shut up already. One way around that is to get him talking about something else, like that, and then get to the map before he finishes speaking. And that'll kind of overwrite anything else he would have said, and then you can just, like, leave for a level while he's looking the other way. The last thing that I want to talk about with these is, largely, whenever you finish a level, that level will be kind of like the Hanging Gardens here. It'll be grayed out, it'll be starred, you can't go to it anymore. So, whenever you're, like, going to your next level, you can just, like, go ahead and, like, mash away at it, like, pressing, like clicking the sprite and pressing enter, and you'll be able to like get into the level that way. However, when you're going to your first level, the Workman Ward, from the Bastion, Bastion is still highlighted. So if you press enter before you've clicked on the sprite for the Workman Ward, you press enter, kid will come back to the Bastion. So just be careful on clicking specifically the sprite for Workman Ward, but after that, you're pretty much home free to just like, oh, this is the place I need to go to. Get there. So that's pretty much all of the little things that are useful to know about this specific area around here. By the way, you can press your heal key in order to zoom out, see like a little bit more of the Bastion that way. That can be useful for like a couple spots if you just like need to like see an easy path from like the monument to a foundation. But that's that. So now we're coming down. We're winding down here. I just want to cover two very quick things. The whirlwind clip and core duplication. These are both little tricks that are like used in just about every run of this game, and they also tend to cause new players a lot of problems. So it can be kind of difficult to like get the hang of both of these. So I want to show off both core duplication and the whirlwind clip really quick and talk through how they work and give you some information on how to get them to work better. So this is going to be like the last thing here. So let's head to the Workman Ward. Proto Intro 1B.
He gets a good look at things.
I'm also going to need to double check that I have the right weapons, but I can't really do that in debug mode until the kid lands. There we go. So I want the hammer. I have the repeater, good. And I want whirlwind. So the way that this generally goes is you'll go through the level here. You'll pick up whirlwind here, kill these two turrets. You'll have to enter the distillery, enter the arsenal in order for like the ground here to spawn. You see it hasn't spawned because I haven't gone in these buildings. That's not a big deal. You'll then go over to this barge, start it, and you'll hang out on this barge for a while as it basically auto-scrollers over to the last platform of this area. So while that's going on, I'm going to explain how whirlwind clip works. So gates have invisible walls around them. That's how they stop you from going through. I'm just going to kill these guys to get them out of the way. I'm just using God mode to kill some enemies. So, this gate, we don't want to fight here. Like, if you pick up the something heavy here, it'll start an entire fight that you have to go through in order to get through here. What you can do instead is get around here, wedge yourself in this area right here, whirlwind, and roll right into the gate that way. And I believe this is the... yeah, this shows you the invisible walls. This is where we're going through in order to, like, actually get through this gate here. So, like, you're kind of wedging yourself between this tile and this invisible wall. And then do you... oh, well, I pressed Control Q, and that restarts the level. So I'll get back over there real quick. There we go. So, you get in here, you wedge yourself in here, whirlwind, and like that, like kind of, you want to position your cursor kind of around here, sort of between these two stairs right here. That's the angle you want to be at. That'll let you clip into the gate, and then you can just slip between this crack in the invisible walls in order to get on the other side of it. Hi there, Jimmy. Yes, I will be uploading this to YouTube, so you'll be able to see it afterwards. So, one of the most common problems that I see with this clip in particular is that new runners, like, will get around here, they'll whirlwind, and then, like, try to do the clip, and they won't get through. And they won't know why they didn't get through. More often than not, the problem is that you're not quite in the right spot. Like, usually this is where you need to be, is just like wedged so far into this area that you literally cannot go any further. And oftentimes new runners will be like around here, just a little bit far enough away that the whirlwind won't work. So whenever you're like doing this trick, as you're learning, just make sure you wedge yourself in there. Give yourself like 1 or 2 extra rolls to like make sure you're in the right spot. Make sure your cursor is positioned in order to like give you the right angle on the whirlwind, and that'll get you right through. Again, like, you want your cursor basically right between these 2 steps, these 2 steps right here, and that'll get you through. And then you just need to like wiggle around a little bit in order to like roll through that gap in the invisible walls. The other the other thing that I find that a lot of new runners tend to have some trouble with is core duplication. This is the premier trick of just about every category other than ASL. And a lot of times newer runners have trouble with it. There are 2 things that I will usually mention in order to like help make this a little bit easier. Basically, how core duplication works is that whenever you interact with an object, the sprite actually stays around for like an extra frame before the game realizes it needs to get rid of it. And it's interactable for that 1 frame. So if you happen to interact with an item, this is true of cores and also true of like any item that is picked up this way, like the something heavy over there. If you are able to interact with that object on consecutive frames, interact with it twice on consecutive frames, you will pick up that object twice. And the easiest way that we have to do that is the scroll wheel. So you basically just want to give it like a very good hard scroll as you are in range of picking it up. Now, I'm not close to it yet because I want to show you something that I tend to see people do wrong. Because they'll get into position, they'll be close enough, and then they'll kind of ease into the roll. You see how, like, I mean, it's not like you can really see me, like, actually doing the action, but, like, if you check from the input display, like, in the bottom left, like, the speed at which the scroll happens is, like, a little bit slow, and that can make it very easy to miss that window of 1 frame in order to pick it up again. So what you want to do is, I always suggest you want to get into position, even if it like especially if you're learning, especially if you're new, even if it takes you like an extra like second to get in place to get ready for this, take that extra second. You want to get in position, get your finger on the scroll wheel, and then just start the motion of scrolling, and then move your finger onto the scroll wheel, so that it basically does that, so that basically the scroll wheel starts moving when you're scrolling at the fastest. And that'll like make it a lot easier in order to like pick up both of those cores at the same time. If you find that you are doing the scroll correctly and it feels like you're doing the scroll correctly but still having trouble actually getting the dupe, it might be that there's some lag being introduced. It might be that like your computer is just like running pretty hot and like having a difficult time keeping up with the game. Not as often that happens nowadays, but like especially if you're on like an older computer, or if you're also streaming or recording at the same time as you're doing this, your computer can start to just get overwhelmed a little bit, and that can introduce lag into the game. And a little lag at the wrong time can make the dupe impossible. So if you find that might be the case, just try going into options menu and lower your resolution a little bit. I play at 1366 by 768. Just because that's what's comfortable for me. It fits well on the screen. I use windowed mode. You can do it just as easily either in windowed mode or full screen. I like windowed mode because during loading screens it lets me put my cursor like outside the window, of the game in order to like line up some areas that I want to like get the kid moving in whenever he shows up. But if you find yourself having trouble with duping and you're sure that you're doing it correctly, just try lowering your resolution. You'll still be able to like capture it well enough. It'll still look fine. We'll still accept it, even if it's like a low resolution. But this might make your duping a little bit easier. So, with that said, that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this, Bastion tutorial. This like basics of speedrunning Bastion. So, before I go, I want to open up the floor to a little bit of Q&A. If someone has any, if anyone has any questions about how, like, something works, maybe, like, anything that you want to know, we'll give it a few minutes that I'll answer some questions. Just toss it in the chat, and I'll read them out. Leon Machar, thank you for mentioning this no fixed step. We try not to use it a whole lot because it tends to break the game in some weird ways. But if, like, basically if your game is, like, really performing poorly, a way around this is using the no fixed step option. Dash, no fixed step, no capitals, no spaces, nothing like that. You can go into your Steam settings for your game. Just like go into your library, right-click on Bastion, go into properties, stuff like that, and you can add an option to the command line that basically sets up your... I might actually just be able to show this. This is going to be kind of out of the way. All right. I need to set up this scene real quick. Display... I spelled that wrong, but I don't really care. Display capture. And that didn't work for some reason. Well, for some reason the display capture doesn't want to actually show my screen, so I won't be able to show this off. But if you go into your Steam library, I know how to do this through Steam. Someone else might be able to do this through GOG. Explain how to do that, but what I'm doing right now in the my Steam library is I'm right-clicking Bastion, going to Properties, and in the General tab in Properties, I'm clicking Set Launch Options. And then I type in dash no fixed step. All lowercase, no spaces. Dash no fixed step. And that will allow the game to basically, like, run well enough to do what you need to do for speedruns, even if you're playing on a very old computer or something that is having a very difficult time keeping up with the game. Now, I do not recommend this. I would suggest, like, exhausting every other option you have before you use no fixed step, because it also causes some animation problems. It causes some animation glitches, and it causes some weird collision in the game that makes certain clips, certain things like that, easier, which is nice for that, but it also means that if we were to, like, allow no fixed step and make it a, like, typical part of the run, it would kind of be a race to the bottom for anyone who's, like, running the game, because in order to run the game, you would want to have a terrible computer, basically. You would want to have the worst computer that you can get in order to make clips very easy, very trivial. And that just, like, it gets into muddy waters with at least from my perspective as a mod, as someone who has to verify runs. It puts the game it puts a run into some pretty murky waters and makes it a lot more difficult to verify. At least a lot more difficult to verify in good conscience. So I will say that You can use no fixed step if you absolutely need to, but I can't stress this enough. Please exhaust every other option to like make the game playable before you use no fixed step. So, I believe that is just about done then. So, yeah. So, if no one has any more questions, then I'm not seeing anything in chat. So, again, if you're watching this from YouTube, or if you didn't get a chance to ask questions here during the stream, just hop right into our Discord. You can here's a link here to our leaderboard, speedrun.com/bastion. There's a link right here to our Discord. I am also going to put that link into the description on YouTube if you're watching this from YouTube. If you have any questions beyond what you have seen in this video, just hop into our Discord, ask us anything. We are here to help. Like, our community is mainly based in, most of our runners are either from America or, sorry, most of our runners are either from the USA or Europe. Usually around kind of the, well, a few different spots in Europe, but like there will usually be someone around like during waking hours in either of those regions that can answer any of your questions. And yeah, we will be more than happy to help you out any way you need. If you need some help getting set up, any help getting your game together, help with tricks, help with movement, anything like that, we are more than happy to give you whatever help you need to get started. Is Infinite Scroll legit? Asks Jimmy Sit Zero. We haven't had a runner that's used it, which is probably a good thing. That kind of goes into like possibly like a literally cheating gray area. I would call it a gray area, but I at least, speaking as a mod, would be on the side of not, would be on the side of really not liking the idea of Infinite Scroll. But that would be a conversation that would need to have that would need to happen between me and other mods, not just me. So, in any case, yeah. So if that is the last of the questions, then I'll just leave it there. Then I'll still be on this stream for a little while to talk a little bit before I cut it here. But this will be the end of the video if you're watching on YouTube. So thank you for watching all of this. I'm so glad that you are interested in speedrunning Bastion, at least enough to have watched this video. And I wish you the best of luck with your runs. Thanks for being here.